The photography community has always been connected with the Aurora chasing community. Seeing it with your own eyes is one thing, but to be able to capture it well for yourself or for others to see is a whole other feeling. There's something extremely satisfying about capturing it. Most photo shoots involve a controlled location, to some degree at least, where you can control your subject or your model or the lighting or the composition, almost all the different elements of photography. But when you're chasing the lights, you have to be quick to adapt. You give up control to this beautiful and mysterious thing. You cannot control where they're going to appear. You cannot control how bright they're going to be. You can only control your reaction and your camera settings to expose that image to the best of your ability. To get really, really gorgeous photos, there's this process of knowing and having a plan of how many different compositions you can go, and going to these locations during the day is a huge part of that process, because at night, if you've never been to the location before, then you're going to have a hard time trying to figure out what it actually looks like or how it's going to appear on your camera. And since you have no idea how long that solar storm is going to last, you have to be as quick as possible, and there's anxiety that comes along with that. The artists and adventurers who are willing and daring to stay up all night, couple times a week even, are the ones who are going to pull off those bucket list shots. Luck is a huge part of Aurora chasing, and I learned that during the KP8 event that struck the province on November 4th, 2021. The night started with us waiting at our homes in Calgary to see if it would appear over the city, but there was no luck. You do need a pretty strong solar storm to see it over a city, especially since there's so much light pollution. We decided to head east of Calgary out into the prairies so that we could get away from some of that light pollution. After waiting around for quite a while, the only thing we were able to see was this green glow on the horizon, but we couldn't see it with our own eyes. That's just what our cameras were picking up. We decided it was time to pack up our stuff and head home to go to sleep. As we were driving back home through the city, I remember looking up at the sky and I could see like slivers of green light appearing. And I just thought to myself, there's no way that's it, because that was the first time I've ever seen Aurora over the city. I knew it was possible, but it's kind of unbelievable to see with your own eyes, since I had such a hard time seeing it, outside the city at this point. I honestly couldn't believe my eyes, and I kind of thought I was hallucinating at first. Today's phones are powerful enough to capture a long exposure photo, even from a car moving 100 kilometers per hour. So I decided to take one so that I would be able to prove it to other people when I was trying to tell the story, but to also just remind myself of that moment. And I think that's another part of photography that's underrated, is a lot of people think, obviously, like, capturing a super beautiful image just adds to that story. Being a good storyteller and a good photographer, if you can combine those two things together, then people are really going to engage with your art. But even a photo as simple as that, like, I still go back and look at it every once in a while, and it is not a good photo at all, right? But I don't think it really matters sometimes. We knew that it wasn't time to go home yet, and we just decided to keep driving out to get away from the city lights. Clouds were coming in from the east, so this led us west. This is the part of chasing where your heart starts pounding and adrenaline starts to fuel your entire night. As photographers, we don't always get opportunities like this. If you have another job or you have a gig in the morning, then you have to debate between staying up all night or missing the event altogether because you have something important to do the next day. There's all these little things that have to line up perfectly for you to sometimes get those dream shots. We can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get those perfect shots. When you're sitting in a car watching the GPS route slowly get shorter, and the other thing you can see is the lights dancing out from your window, you start to get a little impatient and worried that once you get to your spot, maybe it's gonna be gone. But this is the part that you can't control, and you kind of have to give up that control and just be patient. And all you can do is wait and hope that the storm is going to last. As we started to head further west, we made our way into the mountains. When we got to our location, I realized that I actually forgot my tripod, which is probably the most important piece of gear you need besides your camera and lens. And of course, like memory cards and batteries, but it's important to set up the right angles. So I had to do a classic astrophotography trick, and that was take off some extra layers and form my sweater into some kind of tripod so that I could at least point my camera up to the sky. And yeah, that's kind of just what I had to deal with that night. It was one of the craziest storms I've ever seen. November 4th, 2021 was crazy. Calgarians are lucky because we have the city, and then we have the prairies to our east, we have the mountains to our west, north and south, we have more of the prairies. There's just a lot of different locations you can go to, even 20 to 30 minutes just outside. But there's something about seeing them in the mountains that, I mean, the mountains are already so gigantic and humbling, but to see just this crazy thing happening in the sky over these giant rocks, it's hard to explain, and it's something that people dream of. And I think sometimes we get into a lot of situations where we experience these crazy events, and sometimes I think we forget and take it for granted. During that same night, our friends Pete and Jenna were already set up at the same location, ready to capture it all. During this episode, you're going to hear the stories from photographers who are daring enough to stay up all night and capture these incredible events.
My name is Peter O'Hara, and I'm an adventure filmmaker and photographer, originally from Ontario, where I worked in the television industry, and I just felt the call to the mountains, and so now I moved out to Alberta, where we have a business together that focuses on outdoor filmmaking and photography.
My name is Jenna, and I'm from Brandon, Manitoba. I came out to Alberta 3 or 4 years ago, and I am a photographer, videographer, and registered nurse.
So how I became a photographer, actually, funny enough, was through working on becoming a cinematographer. A lot of the cinematographers and DPs I worked with said, if you want to get better at your craft, then you should take up photography as a way of constructing a better image, learning more about composition and things like that. And so that's what I did. And in the process, I completely fell in love with photography. So not only am I a cinematographer, but I'm also a photographer. I kind of incorporate both into my business now. And so that's the story of how I became a photographer, essentially.
So my journey with photography started around 5 years ago. And funny enough, it's actually linked to the Northern Lights. It's what sort of sparked my interest into photography in the first place. I grew up in Manitoba. Riding Mountain National Park was a place that my family would always go to during the summers, and I'd sit out late at night on the docks and I'd watch this green glow on the horizon, which was later told to me was the Northern Lights. And so it started off with this curiosity, I suppose, and I started going to all the local tourist offices and looking through local photographer books, and sort of had this crazy idea that I wanted to capture the Northern Lights for myself. And so I just remember Googling like how to set settings for capturing Northern Lights, and I took my very new camera and my tripod and I sat it down, and just through trial and error sort of you know, discovered what it was like to do astrophotography. And as soon as I clicked the shutter and kind of saw the back of the screen, and it was like a blur of green glow, but it was essentially the first time I'd seen anything like that. And so I was hooked right away. So this obsessive, almost addictive chase from then on now.
Working in the television industry, I have these fortunate opportunities to travel a lot. And so the first time I actually experienced the Northern Lights was I was working on a TV show up in the Yukon in Dawson City. And it had been a really long day on set, but we got word from some of the locals that it was going to be a big Aurora display that night, and none of us had ever seen them before. So we stayed up late, we were looking at the skies just through our hotel room window, and I saw like a faint glow that looked like a cloud. And so I went out into the street, and sure enough, it was green. And so I texted everybody, I was like, let's go, the Auroras are going. And so we went up to this place called the Midnight Dome Lookout, and we just saw this incredible display of dancing auroras. And I took pictures of the crew and everybody just having a good time under the auroras. And it was just such a great, unique, special experience to see the auroras for the first time up in the Yukon. And having this experience through photography as kind of a side byproduct started to ignite this kind of idea that, hey, I could also be a photographer and, you know, chase auroras, chase adventures and all that kind of stuff. So it did start to spark something within me, I think, having these experiences.
So the first time I saw the Northern Lights was in Manitoba, which was where I grew up. And, you know, I sort of spoke to the fact that it was what introduced me to photography, or what really sparked my interest in the first place. And it's like an undescribable feeling, I want to say, for me. It's almost like this compulsion after I saw it for the first time. It's like this addictive, almost borderline obsessive, like it's weird. I like chase Northern Lights like it's my job. Like I literally don't miss a night. But it's like my favorite thing in the world. It's my favorite subject to capture. And so yeah, I feel like what I felt in that first moment, I still feel till this day. And it will range from anywhere from this quiet contemplation and appreciation to screaming, dancing. I'm like yelling like a crazy person.
Pete, get out of bed, we gotta go, the auroras are going.
It does this funny thing, yeah, where it's just so much emotion all at once. It's really hard to describe unless you see it and hear it for yourself.
If you could be a fly on the wall when she's freaking out when there's an aurora happening, like in the car when we're chasing it and the sky's pulsating, it's quite funny.
I'm a crazy version of my normal self.
Jenna is so avid. Like I probably wouldn't get half the aurora shots that I have without Jenna, because she's so obsessive about it, which is great. Like she's in the aurora chasers more than I am. She's looking at the data way more than I am. So it's like, it's kind of this nice thing. I was like, well, I know Jenna's going to be looking at the aurora data. So when I'm sleeping, she's on the Facebook Alberta Aurora Chasers group, you know, seeing if anyone's out, seeing if there's anything in the sky. She's looking at the data. She's looking at the sunshine aurora camera. And then if there's a show going off, I know that she'll be screaming. So I'll wake up and then we'll get her stuff and we'll get in the car and we'll go. So I can thank Jenna for a lot of those moments, you know?
So I feel like we've had the privilege of really chasing the Northern Lights across Canada. You know, Iceland, we were just there in October of 2022, and literally the best show I've ever seen in my life was right here at home in Alberta. It was a G3 storm night, so a KP index of 8. The sky was exploding overhead and all around, pulsating, like it was like electric. It almost felt like the sky was alive. I don't know if you have like better descriptive words, but the colors, green, purple, pink, blue, it was out of this world.
It was almost eerie because it was 360 views of the sky pulsating. It was like the sky was like glass and it was gonna shatter and fall on us.
Like someone was like pounding on it,
yeah,
like, from the top.
And so you had this like weird feeling about it, which was kind of...
It felt weird.
It felt like aliens were invading or something. I don't know how to describe it. It was a weird feeling, but it was pretty surreal and amazing.
It was an adrenaline rush. We have never driven so quickly to a location. We've probably never been so argumentative on the road.
About where to go to shoot.
It was just pure emotion. And as soon as we arrived, we actually chose to land at Vermilion Lakes, which is a southeast facing feature. So very rare to capture the Northern Lights in that location. And that specific night
some of the best photos I've ever captured in my entire life.
It's like the bucket list or iconic kind of shot that you think of in the Canadian Rockies, like the Northern Lights over Vermilion, and just that one sort of night, everything aligned, and we got some of the best images for sure.
And then after Vermilion, it was like, bam, Vermilion, bam, Tujac, bam, Minnewanka, bam, Castle. So you got all these like iconic landmarks with the auroras all in one night.
We chased for 8 straight hours, I think, and we rolled up in bed probably by 7 o'clock in the morning, and then we still felt like revived. Like it was just this never-ending adrenaline pump.
Yeah, you knew you experienced this moment that was really, really rare. And I feel like we've been spoiled a lot, but Jenna was quick to remind me that like you might not ever experience that moment again in your entire life. So it was nice to be able to share that together and to be able to capture that photography.
And to be able to do it home in Alberta. I think that's, you don't have to spend, thousands of dollars to go to a specific destination, or I don't know. We just have incredible skies right here at home in our own backyard.
So my name is Naomi Atherton. I'm 26 years old. I'm a wedding photographer, originally from Adelaide, South Australia. So my mum was always a hobbyist photographer, so I kind of had access to a camera from quite a young age. Probably about the age of 10. It wasn't until my later teen years where I kind of figured out that there was a little bit of money to be made. So I kind of focused on shooting people and portraits, and that was kind of what I delved into then. When I moved to Canada, I practically paid my way through film school by advertising on Craigslist. To shoot corporate headshots way too cheap, and that was kind of how I started kind of realizing my love for it. But it wasn't until my first trip to the Canadian Rockies, actually, that same year, where I kind of ignited this curiosity for landscape photography, in the sense that I was so in awe of what I was seeing and what it was making me feel, that I was determined to kind of figure out how I could relay that through my work. So I kind of delved into shifting my focus and figuring out how to learn how to do that. It was almost a year ago to the day, actually, in a couple of weeks, and it was completely unplanned. It was a trip that was not even intended to be for that. And it just happened by chance that the data was good and the skies were clear, and all of a sudden, even though my focus hadn't really been on going there to see the Northern Lights, I just remember being overcome by this kind of realization that something that I'd wanted to see for such a long time, I was actually going to see finally. And I think I just kind of, it's a moment that I won't forget, in the sense that everything was so heightened. It was minus 37 degrees Celsius. I was freezing to my core, and seeing it for the first time just kind of explode above me was definitely something that I'm not going to forget anytime soon.
My name is Akash. I am 26. And I work as a chemical engineer for a firm in Calgary, but I'm originally from India. I used to click on my cell phones back in my Bachelor's of Engineering days, and then I started borrowing my friends' cameras. My interest in photography grew a lot. I did ask my parents for a camera, but as I would say typical Indian parents are, they're like, focus on your studies first, because this is not the thing that will pay your bills in the future. And some way they were right at that point, because art has a very big competition in India. If like 1.4 billion people out there, so Indian parents are like, it's not for sure that you'll be successful in that, but if you are, that's a different story. They didn't buy me a camera that I wanted, but they did give me something to start with, and that helped me a lot. So I'm grateful for that. And that's where my journey started. I started using a point-and-shoot camera that my parents bought for me, and that helped me stabilize my hands at first for zoom shots, I would say, and how to grab cameras and stuff, because I had no clue how to use a camera. So that, I think in a way it was a wise decision from them not to buy a camera for me. And after that I was a part of a photography club in my college, which had a bunch of cameras lying around. I started using that, tried out different lenses. I borrowed one of them for my Kashmir trip in 2018, and unfortunately I realized when I landed in Kashmir that the autofocus was busted. So I spent 8 days with manual focus. And with the shots I got from that trip, I'm pretty happy about that. The very first month I landed here, I discovered the Alberta Aurora Chasers page on Facebook, and at that time recall that there were not many members in this group, like few thousand. Right now it has crossed over 150,000, I think. So it has picked up a lot, and it has helped me a lot, mainly with scientific information, how to track the aurora, how to interpret the data, when to look out for the northern lights, when not to, even though the data looks good. So it has helped me scientifically and also logistically where to go. So the last G4 storm that I went out for, I was done with the chase because I had to work the next morning. So I came back. I was opening the lock on the main door of my house, and the weather cleared up because I went out because the weather in Calgary was cloudy. When I came back, weather cleared up and I could see it like right outside my house. So I guess like from all the pictures I've seen on Instagram and Facebook, people have been able to see it from Calgary downtown as well, which is like a pretty big light pollution. As in India, you cannot see the northern lights. The only place that are associated with northern lights is the Scandinavian countries and the northern part of Canada, those parts. So it is a very exclusive phenomenon, and most of my connections on Instagram, they are from back home. And I don't think that there's many people who live in the Scandinavian countries in their connections as well. So it's a chance for me to show them what I can see here.
For me, photography, I've always been taking pictures. You'll find a lot of photographers say they've always been taking pictures. Storms and aurora are where I really figured out, I really found that thing that makes me want to take pictures, that makes me get out and improve the craft and constantly try different techniques, different methods of capturing that event. So storms and aurora are really what crystallized my passion for photography and helped me grow that hobby. It's an interesting challenge, right? Because like I said, I've always been taking pictures. I've always had a camera ever since I was a kid. But it wasn't until I started realizing, where I wanted to push my boundaries that I really started to evolve how I take pictures and what I need to take my pictures. And that's where it started to grow. I found this avenue of what I call sort of like a chaser of opportunity, or myself. I like to describe myself as a chaser of elusive things, and that's really, I guess, where my passion for photography crystallized. Storm photography, auroras. The other one that I do quite often is frozen bubbles. When it gets really, really cold outside, it's like a limited opportunity time frame, and you have to take advantage of it when you can. And those are the kind of things that really, I think, find my passion for capturing content. It's not just photos anymore, of course, it's videos and time lapse as well.
My name is Mike Whiting. I'm 37 years old. I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, and I'm a sales manager. It's a huge advantage to be able to interact virtually with the Facebook group, because it allows you to see different areas where you might be able to see them if there's clear skies. The threads that they post, either early or once there starts to be some activity, can obviously give you the heads up that you should get ready to go out if you do want to try to catch the lights. So it's a huge advantage. And then I've mentioned a couple of friends that I've met through the group. So it's also a community in that perspective that once you've interacted virtually, you could actually meet some friends with a common interest as well. I've met a few people through the group, either just by chance when I'm out, or through virtual interactions first, just online. But the one friend, like I mentioned before, Dylan Kaniski, we became good friends after that night where we posted that comment on November 4th. Because of that post, that I saw the lights that night, and it was a life-changing experience for me, and I'm sure that other people did. So just to thank him, and then we started chatting more, and I found out he was a photographer, and it was something I wanted to get into. So we just kept chatting and kind of bonding over aurora chasing and photography. He taught me a lot about the data, how to read it, just beyond just looking at the Facebook group with Space Weather Live. And yeah, we've become really good friends since then. And we go out and shoots and aurora chasing all the time together. No, I definitely was not a photographer before my experience that night. So after November 4th, one of the things, like I was saying, I was all alone. I was walking around. It was like a surreal experience. So I was taking pictures with an iPhone, just trying to be able to show people what I saw, but it really didn't capture it, right? So yeah, after that night, I think it was a few weeks later, I walked into the camera store downtown Calgary. I told them I saw the Northern Lights on November 4th, and it was really awesome, but I didn't know how to take any pictures. And you know, about an hour later, I walked out with lots of camera gear and barely any idea how to use it. And ever since then, yeah, not just Aurora, I've gotten into photography as a hobby in a lot of different respects, and mostly landscape. But you know, for me, I talked about how that night and how Aurora helped my mental health, and definitely picking up that hobby of photography has helped me maintain it. Keeps me getting out into nature, keeps me chasing Aurora, and has really given me a passion to look forward to, almost something I can do any day I want. With photography, the main goal of mine originally was to take pictures of the lights, right? So when I got the camera, anytime there was even the chance of a green band out there or something going on, I'd head out and practice shooting my settings, all that, over and over again in the freezing cold, in the dark, just to get familiar and better at it. But it's expanded beyond just Aurora for sure. I've taken that hobby, like I said, to landscapes. I do really like astrophotography still. Anything at night is fun, although it can be scary sometimes. But yeah, so aurora chasing or photography at night for me is kind of scary. I still am not 100% comfortable alone. In some situations I do find myself comfortable, but then usually there's something, you know, like there's a sound from the bush or something that happens that all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm not cool with being alone anymore, right? So, but that being said, when the lights do start to dance, usually that fear goes away pretty quickly. So if I'm out there waiting, watching the data, waiting for something to happen, you know, and there's a crackle in the bush, then I'm usually pretty scared. But once the lights come out, I typically forget about it for at least a little while.
There's one photographer who had his entire perspective in life change forever on that November 4th, 2021 event. What I didn't mention in previous episodes was one of the reasons why I started chasing Aurora was, yes, I wanted to do this as a full-time career and to help run my own business, and just because I was so fascinated. But the other thing was I have struggled with depression and anxiety since I was like 17 years old, and maybe even way before that, but 17 was the first time that I had a doctor tell me that that's what was going on. It sounds kind of nuts, but going out at night alone and trying to capture self-portraits or just like landscape photos of the Northern Lights, doing it alone was something I just really enjoyed, and it was a way to be very present, because there's some anxiety that comes obviously with being alone at night out in a field or in the mountains or even in the city, really. You have to worry about the possibility of running into wildlife or, I mean, even dangerous people. There's a lot that goes on at night, and night can sometimes be scary. What I'm trying to say is it's scary. Like, it's scary to be out alone at night for most people. And I think a part of my way of trying to make myself feel better was, if I'm scared, I'm present. And at times I found it really, really difficult to be present. And yeah, that's just, Aurora did more than give me a career. It also helped combat my mental health in a lot of different ways. And this led me to hearing Mike's story. And when I reached out to Mike, he said he was happy to talk about it.